Hello everybody and welcome to my first and probably not last F1 2021 setup guide. We have a lot to cover through, but before all of this, thank you so much for 100 subscribers. I can't even believe this has happened, but I'm just going to continue what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to bring more setup guides for you, more setup updates, especially at the start of the game where the meta is evolving. And we're going to talk about the meta of F1 2021 today. Yes, the game is not out yet, but it already has a meta. People have been playing it in the beta, and they have been setting up the car in some ways, and you heard the YouTubers talking about how the car feels, what they did to change it, and I basically gathered all that information, and I'm going to try to put it in one concise, hopefully short enough video. Because that I can guarantee, if you put your F1 2020 setup into the next game, you will spin instantly in the first corner in the end, no doubt. So we will start with the aerodynamics, and as you can see, a lot has already changed here. We are running inverted wings for this one. I just put this on some random numbers. This is not like any recommendation for Belgium, for example. So we are running inverted wings at the moment for F1 2021. The reason behind this is that traction will become a lot more easier when the game in the new game, so we won't need as much rearing. At the same time, the car feels a lot more understeery in high speed. And in high speed, the front wing generates a lot of downforce. So we want a lot of front wing to generate the downforce we need in the fast corners. But we want enough rear wing to make sure that we don't lose the car on the entry of the corner, which is another point, and under braking, and in the high speed corners to a point. We don't really need the rear wing for the traction out of the corners anymore, because that will become significantly easier. So that's why we're probably going with lower rear wing settings and higher front wing settings compared to last game, and right now we're running inverted. However, this may change because, as we will see later, the suspension settings are extremely passive right now. Moving on to the transmission. Because the traction is so easy on the new game, you can lock the differential more to provide more acceleration. So I'm expecting anything between 65 and 75 to be used at the start. We might see a meta develop when somebody says, like last game, oh, 50 is the best, even though you probably could have used 55. In this game, maybe somebody says, oh, 65 is the best, and everybody will use 65 on throttle diff. Off-throttle diff is where the car's behavior extremely changes, and as you can see, we will definitely have to go higher next year compared to this year. This is because 1, we are not running as much rear wing anymore, and 2, while the car is understeery in high speed, it definitely still has the same punch or even more punch in the low speed, so it's quite aggressive on turning and under braking. So that's why we need the higher locked off-throttle differential to provide the car with some stability. This, I think, can go anywhere from 55 to an extreme to maybe 62. We will see, to be honest. This is something that you will have to play with, and that it will, of course, depend on all other factors. Like I can see a setup with more aggressive suspension settings and therefore more passive aerodynamic settings, but that we will come to later. The suspension geometry is the one part that didn't really change, apparently. I think people were running right, right, left, left, or right, left, 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 left. Personally, I think that there is a possibility that rear toe is stronger in the new game, but it's something that needs to be tested. But keep that in mind. So this is like something for an update video where people found out that you want right, right, left, left, for example, or you want lower front camber to avoid the car losing control in the fast corners, which definitely happens, by the way. So this is something which therefore has an impact on the suspension. So right now we are running extremely soft suspension, 1-3 suspension. We're back to 2019 settings here. This is because the car is more aggressive over the bumps, and it becomes uncontrollable if you drive a larger difference between the springs. Also, the car is now lower, which will then affect the ride height, which we will talk about later. The anti-roll bars are the massive part that changed as well. So the car's inferior are more understeery in the fast corners, but at the same time, they are more loose. So this is something that I would suggest is right now to save the car from spinning too much, is to run very stiff suspension, even inverted roll bars in fact, to make sure that the suspension, so the roll bars, not the suspension itself, my bad, so that the car is stiff enough in the fast corners to not lose control. The car leans a lot more on itself in the new game, so we do not need low roll bars to even further increase that and make it undrivable. As I said, the car is quite a lot lower in the new game, so we can't run low ride height 1.2, 1.3. We will need to run higher ride height 4.8, which basically means to me that you will want to run either 4.8 or possibly, like last game, inverted ride height, maybe to stabilize the car in the slow corners. This is something that might come into effect later. But yeah, you will want to run at least like 4 on the front and at least 6 or 7 on the rear in terms of ride height to make sure that the car doesn't spin. For the brakes, the brake pressure is of course something that is extremely personal. If you've been running 100, you can still run 100. I think you can definitely run like 90 to 85 on the next game though, because braking will be significantly more difficult next game and locking up will be significantly easier. So I think lower brake pressures might have an advantage for some corners or maybe even tracks. Front brake bias, we were running 50 last game. That is completely impossible. Like 55 is the absolute minimum. I can see anything between 55 and 57 or 58 be regularly used as a standard option. And this was already the brakes. Braking is a lot more difficult. We lock up easier. The rear comes a lot faster because the car is so much more aggressive in low speed. And now for the tires. Yeah, this is a complete 180 to the 2020 game. Main factor being that the high tire pressure increased the stability in fast corners, which is all we want at the moment. We don't need the traction from the low PSI. We just want the high speed stability. And that's why we are running max tire pressures. This is something that is probably set in stone and probably won't change. So, to cap it all off, a quick rundown. Inverted wings, higher on throttle and off throttle compared to last game. Same suspension geometry, soft suspension, stiff roll bars, high ride height. Same brake pressure, higher brake bias, max tire pressures. If you have any questions, feel free to comment down below. I'm sure I will answer on the same day. I usually do. And if the game comes out, I will be looking at the setups that I used in time trial. I will try to develop myself, and then basically do an update of this. Maybe make this a weekly episode even. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.